On this week's episode of The Come Up, I'll be chatting with director, actor, activist Wardell Julius Clark. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Hello, folks. Hello, friends. Hello, people of the world. Welcome to The Come Up. It's me, Nick. In case you forgot who hosts The Come Up, but it's me, Nick Wickham. I host The Come Up. As you can see, The Come Up continues to be on The Come Up. I want to give a special shout out to my friends at PR Casting, Mickey Pascal, Jennifer Rudnicki, AJ Links, and Ruby Koitzer for this amazing microphone. I'm in front of a microphone. Now I look like all of the people that have ever done a podcast ever. So this is great. We are on the rise. So thanks y'all so much for this. You also gave me a ring light, which is super dope. I'm glowing. I'm going to be extra glowy. I'm going to have 2 ring lights. I'm going to figure out that setup for y'all next week. You're going to be like, ooh, he's so glowy. That's true. I am glowing. For those of you that have become patrons or donate to my coffee, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. You have been massively helpful in covering some of the costs of making this thing happen, because it does cost money. And at this point, I'm not making much of it. So I would love for you to keep supporting, keep Patreoning, keep coffeeing, keep doing all those things. Another way that you can support me is by supporting the art that I make. And I am actually super excited to let you know that I was in December, I recorded a live album of a show called about Hildegard von Bingen, who is a nun from Germany, who was the Catholic Church in a lot of ways. And I was in a little musical about it. And I'm super excited to share that the live album is now out on Bandcamp. You can get it now. I'm going to play you a little teaser to give you a little taste of what you might hear on that album.
So beautiful, so beautiful, so beautiful. You make this place so beautiful. Ready or not, here we come. So beautiful. Ready or not, here we come. So beautiful. So beautiful. Here we come.
Did you hear it, lady? She was like, oh my God. That's true. It is that good. All the songs are that good to make you feel that excited. So listen, tell your friends. It's super exciting. And shout out to David Reddick and Ethan Krupp, the composers there. Shout out to Heidi Jostin, our incredible music director and orchestrator. Shout out to Elizabeth Swanson, our director, and the full cast. I'm going to forget somebody, so I'm not going to say y'all names, but I love y'all and I tagged y'all on Facebook. So the love is real. The love is real. Okay, so tonight on the show, I am excited. I am chatting to Wardell Julius Clark, and we are going to chat about what's going on in our industry, in our world. There's a lot happening. I don't know if y'all know, but the feds are snatching folks off the streets. That's a story that needs to be written as well. But on top of that, we're also having this big moment of conversation of what's going on in our own theatrical industry. It is not as squeaky clean and beautiful as a lot of y'all may think it is on the outside. And so let's have a real conversation about what that means right here on The Come Up with Wardell Julius Clark. Hello.
Hello. Thanks
Welcome.
for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. Grateful to talk to you, even in this forum, friend.
Listen,
so good to see you like this.
How have you been? I mean, the world is losing its mind right now. How are you feeling in general?
I feel good. The world is losing its mind, which is, in some regard, not a bad thing. Our minds have been very controlled and been very programmed for a long time, and even as artists, we've been conditioned to go along with business as usual. So as we continue to lose our minds, hopefully we find ourselves in the midst and know what our true callings are, how we're supposed to help humanity and ourselves and each other in a real way. So as the world continues to get more crazy, as we continue to understand more truths, it's exciting. I feel good. I understand that many people don't. I understand that many people are in deep turmoil. and I have great compassion for that. But we're at a moment of truth telling, and a veil is being unlifted in a real way. And for that, I cannot do anything but express gratitude to the Creator for the truth telling that's happening in this moment. You know, we're
For
still
sure.
artists. We still create. We're just finding different ways to create.
It's what we have to do.
Yeah.
So when I got to Chicago, one of the first shows that I actually saw was Insurrection. I did not
Ah,
realize that that was your first time directing.
Insurrection Holding History. Yes. Oh my God. Insurrection Holding History is my first play. Um, I we did it at DePaul my freshman year. I was on stage crew for it, and it had never had a professional production. And so as I started to venture into my own directing career, as I've been calling for revolution, uh, through my art as a director, my entire directing career, all 3 years of it, that is the play that I sought to do first. Robert O'Hare is a genius and an amazing playwright, and I got very fortunate to get the most amazing group of artists together to tell that truth of our ancestor Nat Turner, and to blend our histories. As we know, time is only present, so it was really nice to do that. It was really cool. I was so cool. I was so excited that you saw that show. Like one of the first things you ever saw.
Yes, because I was at the Goodman at the time, and Ian was like, "I'm in the show. You should come see it." And I was like, "Yeah, of course. I haven't seen a lot of shows. Let's do it." And so I went to see it. I had a good time.
Oh my god! Oh
So
my
why?
god!
What made you want to get behind the table? I feel like a lot of actors, not all actors, but I feel like a lot of actors make the shift, and everyone's different. Everyone's reason is different. So what was your reason?
Well, it was something that had always been prophesied by my friends. It's like, people used to tell me I got a really big brain. And I'm like, we all have the same size brain. But I think what they meant by that is that I had more knowledge about theater and storytelling and artistry than a lot of other people that they work with. And it really happened by necessity of having to keep creating. I was not booking the roles that I thought I would be booking for whatever reason. And also, there was a play that August Wilson's Gem of the Ocean that Ron O.J. Parson was directing at court that I really wanted to be a part of. And I auditioned, but I didn't think I was going to get cast. I know how Ron cast his types, but I had to be in the room, so I asked the AD for it. And that was my start in assistant directing, and I did it 3 times, and then I went back to acting. Like I went back on the other side of the table. But I just had a yearning and a calling that I had a specific mission um, to tell some truths about our people and about humanity in a real way. And I knew that being an actor only allowed me to do that in a lane. And there's a lot of stories and a lot of creativity in this brain that I wanted to get out. And so I started on that journey. And once I did Insurrection, it was just the law of abundance, and it just started to multiply. And Lillian Brown recommended me to someone, and I did Surely Goodness and Mercy, and then the ball just kind of kept rolling in that way. And I kept and continually keeping afforded with opportunities to tell truths and to celebrate Black people in a real way.
Yeah, and that when that phone keeps ringing, that's fun. Is there one
I
that
mean,
you've?
I am grateful for it. There was a period of time where there were no phone calls. Like I wasn't a director yet, and I was an actor, and we all know what that's like. And I'm still an actor. I will be an actor until I transition out of this form. But we know what that's the scarcity of what that can feel like. Because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. For all artists, it is a marathon and not a sprint. If you are called to do this work, in whatever kind of way, you find a way to continue to be creative.
Why do you like being a part of the Chicago theater community specifically, right now, at least in your career?
Chicago, for me, produces some of the strongest, most precise when it's at its best, articulate, energizing work in the American theater. There is a ultimately camaraderie in the community that exists still when we go into those rooms, when we go into those rehearsal rooms, and on those boards. We are, because of the nature of the city, we are going to tell a kind of truth without care for what comes next. We all want to advance in our career, but by and large, the community that I know, the elders that I've been fortunate enough to work with, and the young people who come behind me, everyone is invested in doing the work to tell the truth of those stories. And New York has great theater, great people, fantastic actors, but the energy of the place suggests that this job will beget the next job, which will beget my Broadway show, which will get my Tony nomination, which gets my TV show, which gets my A-list film, which is a trajectory of a career, not knocking that at all. But when you talk about intention and why I love creating theater in Chicago, it's because we care about the work in the moment. Like, we're lucky if we get an extension, and we're not really thinking about the extension in a real way. You know what I mean? We all want an extension, another week of pay, another 2 weeks of pay, but that is not, when we in the rehearsal rooms creating, that's not what we're thinking about. We think about getting to the truth and only the truth. And there's a fantastic kind of energy in that.
For sure. When there have been so many conversations and panels and things happening the past month.
So many panels. Everybody got a panel.
I know, and I feel like this narrative that keeps coming from a lot of panels is this idea of how hard it is for us to work in these white spaces, how hard it is for us to find that level of community and camaraderie that I think you're speaking of in the space that I think the Black folks are able to find pretty easy. I think that there's definite barriers for white folks, not for white folks, for us when working with white folks. But do you think that there is any other possible danger in what folks, because I think, okay, so I think when I entered the city of Chicago, I had an interesting experience. I was at this top crazy theater, which is not anything that I ever asked for. I applied for a job and they hired me, and it was really great. I feel like, though, it kind of set me in a place where I felt apart from, I think, this level of camaraderie or community that you're speaking of. So I think my question is there, I think that the word community is tossed around so often. I want to define it. What does it mean? Who's in the community, and how do we make sure that it invites everyone, truly?
I think this is a great question, Nick, and I think it's a great question because there tends to be, or seems to be, a perception that there are levels to everything. Mm-hmm. In a real way, right? Like, you coming into the community by virtue of being a Black artist in Chicago, you are in the community. Yes, in a specific community, inner circle and an outer circle, the Chicago theater at large, and then the Black Chicago theater community. It doesn't matter if you've ever worked at any of the Black-owned, Black-run institutions, or you're at the top PWI in the city, right? You become a part of the community because you enter here to do the same kind of work that we're doing, to work in the field. That is the community. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to a collective of an idea or a community that is specific in activism or is specific in diversity of casting, those communities can get smaller. They can get more individualized. That perceptively for younger people, new people into the community on the outside, seems exclusive. in a real way. It seems very, um, those are the people who are doing that, and I don't really know them, and they're not really reaching out, and so I don't know how to get in. And when I do reach out, I can't get in because they don't know me. But how are they gonna know me if I can't get in? This cyclical thing, right?
Mhm.
In our community, I think, and I am guilty of this, and you know, or at least I was guilty of this. I really try not to be, and have said this publicly live many times now. I am open as a face in the Chicago theater community, as a resource for people to reach out if they need, particularly in this moment where there are a lot of questions. Um, there is you know, perspective of an elitist like group of the community, and like what a certain group of people stand for. Now, you and I both know that Black people are not a monolith, that people
Mhm.
of color are not a monolith, that human beings are not a monolith. Um, my partner and I are not a monolith. We don't always agree on everything. As a community, I think going forward, we have to be careful that we don't, by whatever factor, exclude in that way. That we're all one. That we all have to move together as one. That we're all doing it for the benefit of our job and what we love. The community, I'll talk specifically now like about the Black theater community. There are factions within the Black theater community. I say if you're a Black artist who lives and works in Chicago, you are a part of the community. Whether you agree with what activists are doing, whether you agree with the kind of plays who we do, whether you agree with whether we work or not, if you are a Black artist in Chicago, if you are a Black theater artist in Chicago, you are a part of the Black theater artist community. I hope that's very clear. We all have different ways in which we think we should work, and the way we should operate, and in terms of if we are activists, because everybody is not. Everybody can do things that help activism, that are, you know, that are active in the movement, recognizing their own humanity and where they exist in the community of all of us. But not everybody is an activist. I want to be very clear about that. Um, but there is a place for you to have a conversation, to to be heard in some way, shape, or form, and also to feel a part. To feel a part. You know, there are the musical theater faction. There is the group of people who only particularly work at the Black theaters, and there are those of us who have uh, worked at both places and tend to work mostly at predominantly white institutions. We exist all across the board. We're all in the same community. We all show up to the BTAAs together. You know, like we all gonna be at the Black Theater Alliance Awards together, where that's at, you know, my theater company timeline, or that's at BET or Congo Square. And so that tells you we're all in the same community. Now, we as people who have, or say leaders of the community, or people who are visible in the work that we have done, have a responsibility, I feel, to be open to new people. Ron O.J. Parson is a great example of finding new people that he doesn't know who just got here and saying, send me your resume, to ingratiate the new people into the community so that you don't feel exclusionary in any regard, from the people that you think are at the epicenter of a thing, particularly being the Chicago theater community or the Chicago Black theater community. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
No, for sure, totally does. Yeah, I just feel like there are so many. Like community is a word that I've been wrestling with like my entire life because I'm from a place where it's tossed around and that's we do community theater, and then I look at the theater and I'm like, well, that doesn't look like my community. So
Right,
what
right,
does
right.
community even mean? Um, and then I
And I
think
think
that
it's a word that can be redefined. It can be redefined. What does it look like for you? What does it mean for you? When the larger mass collective of people are talking about community, what do they mean? I'm not a part of community. I don't know that community. It is a refrain that I have heard very repeatedly in the past couple of weeks of I'm not a part of the community. Um, and we have to really ask ourselves, what does that look like? What does that mean? Does that mean that the person who is giving the interview, you know, does that mean that like I am the gate holder to the community? It does not, from my perspective, it does not. I think you are because you exist and work. Um, and that to that same community theater kind of feel, right? They're like, you live here, you in the community, but you're like, that don't look nothing like what my actual community is. Like I see you're including me, but you're literally not including me.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the conversation we're having uh, in the American theater.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think it's, I mean, that I hear this phrase all the time too, impact over intent. I think that,
Right,
you know, sometimes folks can, like you said, perception of seeing something. And then it's asking why do you perceive that? How is that felt? And how do we fix that? Like what steps do we need to take in our community
right,
to make
right.
sure that we're not. I had a conversation with somebody today that was like, how do we access gatekeepers? And I was like, I hate that phrase. I was like, I don't engage with anyone as if they own the key to any gate.
No, well,
Because
like I was talking with someone who said something about artistic directors and like the people at the top of the theater, and I said, what does that mean? They have the job. Like, why are they the top? Because they have the job. Like, we're talking in terms of like job-based hierarchy, but like that means nothing to me. It really doesn't. Like, we should like really, really investigate a new model, a lateral kind of model for who runs. Like, we can. The one thing we could do as theater companies, we're talking about. I've said many times that most white ADs should just leave their job, and I mean that. But in a large sense, even divesting from the hierarchical structure of of operating systems in the theater would be a start to like remove the point person from the top and let it be a lateral kind of understanding. Like that is a way that is possible to move forward. Like there are a lot of ideas as opposed to screaming, "I don't know what to do." I'm just trying to figure it out. There's no time for that. You had time. Ben
lots
had
of
time.
time,
You
so
had
much
so
time.
much. You had so much time. And time's not even real, but you had it. That lets you know how much time you had. And now the time is different, and so we gonna move like it's different.
Mhm. Um, let's talk about that movement. We See You, White American Theater. Um, how did you get involved, and what is it? What's a quick dirty? What do people need to know if they don't know already?
Yes. We See You White American Theater is a collective of artists who came together. The story is that there were three artists talking, and that three became 33, that three became 300 signatories, and now that signatory is in the thousands, tens of thousands of people who are asking for radical change in the American theater. It is connected now. It started with an open letter of because we cannot change what we do not acknowledge. So first we had to collectively acknowledge what the problem is, what the problem has been, and then call for no more. Following the call for no more work was done with the collective. Um, and demands were released, which is a comprehensive 31-page online document able to be downloaded at We See You White American Theater, WeSeeUWAT.com, which is a comprehensive, detailed demand booklet of ask from BIPOC artists to the American theater about things that have been unjust, unequitable, and changes. It is quite dense and comprehensive in its ask. All of it does not apply to every theater. I think you have to read it and see what applies to you at what level you are, particularly in Chicago, as we have a non-equity storefront, equity cat 1, 2, 3 Lort system here in the city. I became involved because an artist friend reached out to me through email. They said there's a collective meeting that is happening, and we are asking you to be a part of a letter. We're asking for change. And I said, okay, let's go. I was not aware of all 300 signatories that are on the letter. I was quite surprised to see a lot of my colleagues and comrades listed alongside. And then the work continues as a collective as the demands are formed and other things are constantly happening with the movement. It is anonymous by design, so there is no anonymous in that outside of the list of the signatories of the 300 and the people who have signed the petition. It is not like this is from one person, because we're working as a collective and understanding that we're more powerful together than we are individually by ourselves, particularly when we're talking about reforming or changing or restructuring or leaving, divesting from an institutional structure of this regard. We also know the functions of white supremacy in that they will try to divide and conquer us at every turn. And so it is best, as the collective continues to work and do this work, that everyone who signed and all the petitioners, it is a united forward front of the work that needs to be done. That is where we are at this moment. The demands are out, and I'm hoping PWIs is doing work. I hope they end up doing the work.
Well,
I can personally hold the companies that I'm affiliated with accountable and make sure they're doing their work. But in a large sense, it's not our job to tell them how to fix it. It is their job to fix it and show that it is a safe space for us.
yes. Well, and I mean, we just learned apparently that a lot of white people learn how to read in 2020. So many books being read. Isn't that fascinating? So,
Yes.
so do you really think they're gonna read all 31 pages? I'm not convinced they're gonna make it through. I think they do. Is there a footnote version available?
I am not interested in any more lazy or mediocre effort on the part of white people when it comes to anything with black liberation and freedom. To answer your question, I don't know. I like whether they're going to read it all or not. They should. I would advise, if my word or anyone in the collective's word meant anything, that they should read all 31 pages and try to grasp and understand the severity of the inequitable problem that has existed. Um, but I don't know if they're gonna read all 33 pages. And like, I also don't care if they read them or not. Because that is their choice. That is their choice. If you want to remain willfully ignorant in the midst of a national revolution, that is your choice, and whatever consequences comes because of the results of your choice, so be it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's my question: is what do those consequences look like? How do we account for if they are doing the work or not? And then if they don't, what does it look like? Do we are we are is the American, because a lot of those folks on the list, I'm like, y'all, like Viola, are you willing to not work if they don't do the things? Are we willing to stop writing? Are we willing to not take the contracts? Are we willing to sit and or leave or walk away and make our own thing if this doesn't happen?
Amen. 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 That is the question, right? Um, what does accountability look like? So the second act, which is a Chicago co-coalition that Melissa Dupre, Sidney Charles, Pat Whalen, and I founded together, is a coalition that seeks for transparency in the Chicago theater community. There is a survey out and about now that we are taking to see where people are in regard to working in the Chicago theater community. What does accountability look like? Well, you can look at those demands and say that, hey, have we done anti-racism training? Have we done sexual harassment training? what are the necessary base steps we have done so that every person who works inside our institution have a minimum level of understanding of how we're operating and how to change it. What does that look like? I don't know. Show that you've done that training. Show that you've been accountable. The second act will be working on measures so that we can see, objectively, the theaters who have and who have not done that work. And what does that work look like? And what is the criteria of that work? There are many different people working outside of the second act to do really deep diving into all institutions. In a large sense, we as artists have to ask ourselves, is it worth it? I have turned down in the past month or two, I have turned down a few things because of what I asked. What are your anti-racism policies? Has everybody been trained? Can I ensure safety for my artists? They had no answer to their question, so I don't sign their contract. Yes, we have to be able to say no. Not anymore. We're in a pandemic. We have to be able to say that is my livelihood, is my spirit, is my soul, is it worth it to go into that place that I may cause harm? Going into that place may cause harm, and like I always say this, Nick, if everyone told a testimonial of the racist practices that they've experienced at every institution they've ever worked at, predominantly white institutions, if we all just went public and told our truths, not a single one of them would be working.
Nope.
Tomorrow, not a single white theater in Chicago will be working if black and brown people told the injustices we've experienced there.
Well, and that's, I think that's my thing on, like, that's why we talked earlier about how I'm honestly, I've been doing theater my whole life. I took my first class when I was 6. This is like every fiber of my being is theater. So I will never leave the art form. But right now, I want to leave the industry. I have no interest. I think that just because of what you said right there, like so many of us has already went through so many terrible things we've already experienced. Like I was called a slave at a theater that rhymes with Woodman. I won't say what it is, but it rhymes with Woodman, and it's in Chicago. I was called a slave during the first rehearsal of a show about slavery. And I'm like, wow, that's wrong. That's a problem. And I think that those stories exist all across our industry. And so I think I was super excited about all the conversations happening and being invited to these panels and being like, oh, we're moving, like things feel different. And then like a month later, I was like, why am I even trying this with y'all? Why I don't even know if I want to save it. I honestly I don't know if I want to.
And I think that's a valid question. In some regard, I feel, I have different ancestors feel different ways sometimes. And in one regard is that, like, we are responsible for the greatest work on most of those stages. It is our blood, sweat, and tears, just like the soil of the American earth, that is from us. So in some regard, people, I had this talk last week, and I've been ruminating on this thing that Felicia P. Fields said about, how you going to go in somebody else's house and tell them what to do. And I said, well,
right, that hit,
and then I was talking with some friends and, some other activists, and we were discussing it, and it's like, well, is it their house? Is any of it actually theirs? I don't care how many rich white donors you have, how many funders or board members you have. Who's actually the energetic fiber that exists? If black and brown people divest from the theater altogether, there is no more theater.
Seriously?
So whose building is it? So who actually has the power of that building, right? And in a real way, I think all artists have to ask themselves the question that you asked on Facebook. Do I want to go back? If I go back, what is acceptable? What have they done that makes me want to go back? That is the actual question. I'm glad you asked that, because in terms of accountability, Um, it can look a lot of different ways. We know that people who have harmed people generally ask the person they've harmed, what does accountability look like to you? If a collective in a large sense of institutions has given you a list of demands, you can read them, use them as a guideline, as a thesaurus, as a resource point. What can you do aside from your Black Lives Matter post, if you did that? What can you do as an institution right now to show that you're starting anti-racism practices? You need us to tell you what wasn't right? I think for some companies, and this is personal to me, so I'm gonna get personal with you, okay? If that's okay.
We love personal here on the Come Up.
I risked my entire career to tell the truth about my experiences at his shadow at 16th Street. My entire career. Friends did too. Actors were harassed by the police. They had parking tickets put on their cars. Police showed up backstage after doing a play about police brutality. Egregious macro and microaggressions throughout, as with everywhere. We collectively took a stand and said, this is not okay. There was an investigation. All of this is not in the president's investigation. All these things happened. Nothing happened at that theater. What accountability measures were shown? What did that theater do or say to make Black and brown people feel safe going into that environment? That investigation unearthed 10 years of racist practices at the hand of the artistic director and filmer. 10 years, which include blackface, all manners of racial large and small. Just basic theatrical malpractice work. In some regard, there are testimonials. We risked all this, nothing happened. We're in the middle of a revolutionary movement. We look up and they're trying to produce again a Black play by a Black playwright. A play I was offered to do before I even started his shadow. So this has been in the works. But what have they done as an institution to show that it is safe for Black and brown people after 10 years of egregious racist practices? Nothing. They're sending out emails to people, and people emailing me and other production people from his shadow asking, is it safe to work at 16th Street? I say, hell no, it's not. And Filmer has done no work to my knowledge. The apology she released, she deleted. She called the people involved and gave us the same canned apology, like she was reading from a notebook, Nick, void of emotion or contrition. It seemed like something that was the next step. She never asked what accountability actually looked like for us or any of the people who have, quite a long history at that place. We know white supremacy will seek and divide and pick and pick and pick and pick until they get one of us to do their bidding. We know that's true. And Film is trying to produce a play right now. Checking the right boxes, right genders, right races. But what have you done? What have you done as an institution to ensure the safety, particularly right now in this time in a remote location?
For sure.
If you can function inside the theater, how can you function online?
Well, and we've been talking about space, and I feel like we've become too attached to theaters in general. I think that when I think of creation in theater, I don't think of institute or buildings first. I think of making.
Well, we started outside, so we can go back outside.
Exactly. And I do have a question though. It might be a devil's advocate question. I hate devil's advocate questions usually, but here we go.
Well, the
So,
devil doesn't exist in these advocates, so just ask your question.
hey, I'm gonna ask my question. So, and so that 16th Street Theaters in Berwyn, Illinois, bunch of white folks that don't, that in my opinion, don't really deserve a story about police brutality that is good, like his shadow. At is doing those types of work, like, is do one, should we even be going out to these spaces to do those types of shows anymore? Because I don't know if that message is actually getting to those audiences. And two, if we're in a situation where that's happening, like, where is our barometer on, like, how worth it is it to stay here in this situation and keep doing this thing? If my literal body, like, officers backstage, I ain't coming back. I'm leaving you, and it's over. I'm not doing your extension. I'm leaving. And sorry about it. And if you got to take my cute little $200, have fun. Like, cause I don't, cause I so where is that line for us?
I think that line exists in, do they need our work anymore is a great question. At this moment, no. I am proud of his shadow. I'm exceedingly proud of that work because I know the people that saw it. I know the people that it was supposed to reach. That work was done and successful in a real way, and I could not be more proud of that work or all the artists that I worked with in a real way. That work was done. I don't think anymore that that is necessary to do in this moment if they have not shown the right intention behind why the work is done. It is a community that is underserved when it comes to the arts in that regard. I think there's value in that. I don't like, we don't have to all be in the central city. You know what I mean? There's value in that. But at this moment, I say do not go back. I am calling for a do not work of 16th Street Theater until they show accountability for 10 years of racist practices that are in testimonials. Go back, research the hashtag. Tales from His Shadow at 16th Street feels lots of other stories. She has done nothing in any regard to show accountability for that or anything else. And had George Floyd not died, I ask again, would we even be asking this question? We would not. We know the truth of it. So do something, and don't do something by harming more black and brown people. I have had enough actors, my friends and colleagues have had enough people emailing. An actor who was in that show was sent an email by his agent inviting him to audition. That is triggering, traumatic, and violent. Shame on the agent and shame on the theater for even doing it, for not being aware of what's actually happening. There is no reason we should go over there. Do not work at 16th Street until you have seen actual accountability measures.
Yeah. I feel similarly right now to our industry the way that I've always felt about sports. I've said for years and years and years and years that if every black and brown person currently playing a sport, particularly black people, stopped working, it would all halt and this world would shake and shift in ways that we don't even understand. And
Listen, everyone wants to work, right? But what is the work worth? What is your life worth? What is your body worth in this moment? How much power do you not remember you have, black people, brown people, people of color? How much power do you not remember you have?
and specifically actors.
Specifically
I feel
actors
like so
who feel
often,
the least empowered.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier, this hierarchical system, this way that, and I don't, no one should see it because the thing is, we're all collaborators. Like, a director is only as powerful as the cast he puts in the room, right? Like, because that's how it works. So I think that so many actors always feel like they're in this space. And I talked about this a little bit with Newsy. I was like, hey, like, people feel like they will lose their jobs. People feel like they will lose their careers for saying they don't feel safe. I've never had that experience because personally, I'm like, I don't know if I'm just broken or maybe it's my mama, but this face don't lie and the mouth speaks even louder. I can't be silent in those situations, and I've actually found that over the years, I've been able to forge some cool relationships with some dope people just because I walked into space and was like, no, like, that's not what's happening. They're like, who
Yeah.
are you? And I was like, I'm Nick. Good to meet you. So I just feel like owning that power, like knowing that we as individuals have power. It doesn't matter where you fall in this fake supremacist
System. We have so much power, and what you do with that power is a statement to the universe and your community, whether you think you're a part of it or not, of who you are.
Mm.
What we do with our power is a statement to the community, to the universe, and to yourself of who you are.
So what do you want to make right now? I don't like people ask me, I'm like, what types of stories do you want to tell?
I want to tell the stories that haven't been told and the sides of the stories that haven't been told. Um, you know, I dedicated this 1920 season to police brutality, and while that is still a a, a epidemic in our country in a real way, I think my artistry is turning towards highlighting the stories that are lost that remind us of who we are, of how great we've been and will be once again, of the stories of the selective black exceptionalists who've been able to rise to a certain point, and what that actually looks like as it applies to each of us, everyday common man, right? Like, I'm interested in, like, stories that tell about the past and the future. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the Afrofuturism wave to me is very exciting as a possibility to go. I'm always interested in reinventing, because everything's been done before in some way or another, right? So I'm always interested in reinventing um, what theater looks and feels like, what storytelling looks and feels like. I am always and try to work from the place of intention that I try to chart an audience emotional journey moment to moment in any storytelling. And I remind all of my collaborators and my actors about intent for our audience. Now, I don't know what you're going to feel, Nick, when you come see Insurrection, right? But I can chart an emotional experience based on my years in the theater that I can just about guess. If we do our collective collaborative work in a right way, we can set that up to have an emotional impact, an emotional experience for our audience. That's what I'm always after. But now I'm after it in a different kind of way. I think I'll still do a lot of social justice plays, telling truths that haven't been told, plays about the ancestors, but I'm interested in, like, the black wealthy of the early turn of the century. I'm interested in the story of Black Wall Street when it was thriving, and what that community looks like when we reinvest in ourselves and we, like, keep our own money in our community and we cycle it through and get more and more. Like, before supremacy raises its ugly head. I'm interested in what that's like, or people who bought their own freedom and establish businesses and, like, have lineage that still exists. Those are the stories that are exciting to me. And then a whole bunch of, like, what, the American society or the society at large calls the science fiction, which I now, through understanding through the pandemic, is just called science, not so much fiction.
Well, and like I'm really interested right now in I'm not interested in the systems, but I am interested in explaining to people how they work. Just because I feel like a big part of the issue is that racism or our color or our colorism is placed at the forefront of these conversations when really it's about the money and the system in place that was created, and the easy person to keep
Absolutely.
down with that is the person that you can look at and be like, they're different. And so I feel like there's a lot, like,
Yes.
in our education system, there's a lot in our banking system, there are so many systems that we work in and are forced to work with every day that no one really understands or has an actual understanding of not only the system but how it actually affects people, and what
Yeah.
that means and what that looks like on all sides.
Someone
Yeah.
told me the other day, right? Somebody was like, I hate money. Money's so evil. And I was like, no, it's not. Money's great. Love money. It's what people do with money that makes it evil. It's how people classify money in class and don't redistribute it. We are asking for equity in America. We not, equality is one thing, but equality and equity look different. I may not want the same thing as you. You may not want a 10 mansion house. I do. I will have that. But like, we deserve the opportunity to be able to get whatever we want equally and fairly, right? That's what people are missing and don't understand about this conversation. So educating, and also because it's like, money isn't bad. What people do with money is bad. Success isn't bad. What success as a society does to people is not. All the things that we're taught are bad, right? We're conditioned, whether it be in a Judeo-Christian concept or whatever that concept. We're taught all the things that are bad. They're not bad. They're the choices and decisions that human makes. In service of self and usually ego, that make those things bad. So I'm like, money's not bad, power's not bad. Like, if you have power, do really great things with it, like, it's amazing. So you can't argue those things are. And I'm like, yeah, like, money is not bad, but the way people use money, the way they hold it above people's head to like hoard, or 1%, like, that is evil. But that's an ideology of thought. That's not an article. That's not the tangible thing. Like, our ancestors used currency wonderfully. Like, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they redistributed it, they shared it, they never went out of it. They created more of it, and lived in total abundance, long before colonialism ever existed.
I
In a
wonder.
real way.
I wonder if shifting from money to like just thinking about the concept of wealth is useful, because I
Yes.
feel like money as like because a lot of the financial structures that exist before paper money was this trading of what we see as value, or like building your wealth
Right.
by giving you these goats and you give me some rocks and we good. Like,
Right.
it's like how do, like, what does wealth look like, and how do we amass wealth instead of money, and then what does it mean, like, because wealth can also be I feel like wealth is more of a concept, if that makes sense.
wealth Wealth is as much a concept as it is a mind. It is a mind condition, right?
Hmm.
I am wealthy because I have X, Y, and Z. Not wealth. What does wealth look like? Wealth looks like abundance in a variety of areas, if you think it is, right? So I am wealthy because I have food in my refrigerator, X amount of dollars in my account. I have a smartphone and a laptop and a ring light. Like, I am, because of abundance and what we call a more than, is the idea of wealthy, right? Like, if we change our perception of what we have and don't have, we immediately have more. And as Black people in particular, in building Black wealth, as we amass and get things back that we created, that were always ours to begin with, being it institutions, buildings, or literal coins. Hello. Um, like, we have to start to think of wealth in terms in terms of not just money, but using money to acquire an existence that is bountiful and filled with abundance. That is how we have to start to think about Black wealth. Like, when we think about wealth, we think about, oh yeah, Oprah rich, like, she wealthy, right? Like, but why is Oprah wealthy? Because she has an estate called the Promised Land, because she has a private plane, because she has a network, right? And it's not necessarily in the material things, but it also seems like she's pretty at peace with herself and her soul and spirit. That is a kind of mental wealth. And when we try to change our perspective and add on the possibilities of what that is and what that looks like, I think we'll achieve it and draw it closer to us faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wealth.
Does that
See,
make sense?
it does, because listen, I've always been wealthy. In my mind, I have a penthouse and all kinds of stuff. Like
Baby, which is why you do. Which is why you do. Because things don't manifest unless you know and think that they already are. That is literal science of manifestation. So unless you know that that is a truth for you, you're gonna be a lot harder trying to bring it into your existence. So yeah, you always been wealthy. I have too. Look how I dress. sometimes I got two. Sometimes I don't have $2 in my account, or it's in the negative. That in no means I am not wealthy, and it is hard to remember that in the low times, in the down times, in the broke times, in the times of a feeling of scarcity. It is hard to remember I'm still wealthy. I have never gone a day without a meal. That is wealth, because there are people who cannot say that.
Yeah. Listen, always wealthy, sometimes broke.
Huh,
Thanks for being here,
baby,
Wardell.
come on. Thank you so much for having me,
So good
Nick.
to talk to you.
Thank you. I am so grateful.
I'm going to wrap this thing up, and then I'll come talk to you in a little bit. Oh, there we go. That was Wardell. That was this episode of The Come Up. So happy you could all join me and Wardell for that very important conversation. We got some work to do, y'all. So let's do it. Next up on The Come Up, we have my friends, Gianna Clark and Herbert White II. These are two young folks. Herbert's currently at Roosevelt. Gianna just graduated. And so I'm going to talk to them. What do the young Black folks that are in education or just fresh out feeling about this industry right now? A lot of questions. So we're going to chat about it next week on The Come Up. Thanks for being here tonight, and I will see you soon.